Welcome to SandDunes by Entrepreneur Middle East. Today we have the honor to talk with 𝗗𝗜𝗦𝗖𝗟𝗔𝗜𝗠𝗘𝗥, Managing Director of Supervision at Dubai Financial Services Authority, where we will learn more about the approach to digital assets by Dubai Financial Services Authority. Thank you for your time, Justin, and welcome to SandDunes by Entrepreneur Middle East.
Yeah, great to be here.
Thank you. So let's dive deep into the approach immediately. Tell us more about what position has DFSA taken when it comes to digital assets from the beginning until today?
Yeah, we started our journey actually quite early just because we saw this space was a big focus, not only for Dubai, but the UAE. So we tried to make sure that we contemplated what a regime would look like. So as part of that process, we started to look at demand, especially around investment tokens. So we started that process in 2021. And then from there, we developed a regime for crypto tokens, and that was in November of 2022. Since then, the industry is moving rather quickly through that journey. So for us, we're constantly looking at our regime and thinking about how is it that we can connect with what the industry wants to potentially what our regime needs to look like in order to ensure that we foster the innovation going forward.
Let's present, basically there are two. From 2017 you've been evolving your DFSA innovation testing license, and then in 2025, this is really fresh, we can dedicate our time to that, more innovation testing license for tokenization.
Yes, correct.
So let's start first by about ITL program.
Yeah, no problem.
So basically that's a general program for digital assets companies looking at DFSA.
Yes, and it's mainly around emerging technologies as well. So because we started that process back in 2017, we were quite early on the journey. So when we first created that innovation testing license, the focus back then was around crowdfunding. And so when we reflect and we think, okay, crowdfunding's been around now a long time, but back then it was around putting a regime in place to assist crowdfunders. And so we're able to do that. And then what we started to see was more development in regards to money services. So we developed a regime and started to get innovation testing licenses issued for firms wanting to do those two components of the business model. But then from there, we saw big demand in regards to what we saw was crypto tokens and then investment tokens. And as you can see, from 2022 to now, it's almost been an explosion in regards to the demand that we're seeing in this space. So fast forward now to 2025, what we did do is we thought, okay, well, there's a huge demand in this space. And one thing to talk about our innovation testing license, it's a very different regulatory sandbox to what you'll see globally. Around the world, you'll see regulators wanting to do an innovation testing license, but is mainly a closed off system. And what I mean by that, it's not interacting with the end client. Whereas our innovation testing license, it allows this emerging technology for the firm to actually offer that technology to investors, but to do it more on a restricted basis. Once we feel comfortable that we can remove those restrictions, we will remove those restrictions, and then they'll be a fully authorized firm. So for us, in 2025, we thought, okay, we're seeing huge demand in the investment token space. So we sent out an expression of interest at the start of 2025. And then we closed off that expression of interest at the end of April 2025. And we thought at the time that we would get a few expressions of interest, but it was actually huge demand. We got over 100 different firms that wanted to actually take part in that process. So now the process is for us to look at close to about 100 expressions of interest and work out who we want to include within the innovation testing license process.
And where are those companies from?
They're from everywhere, actually, globally. So we're seeing huge demand from the UK, the EU, Hong Kong and Singapore, and then different parts of the world, but I'd say the majority are basically those four places.
So basically, let's then present, now this is was more general, what is permitted and what is not permitted currently under DFSA?
Yeah, so if I take into account our crypto token regime, what's excluded from that is your NFTs and your utility tokens, and what's prohibited is your algorithmic tokens and also any privacy tokens as well. And the main reason for that, for the latter, is mainly around the fact that as a regulator, we're heavily focused on the fact that financial crime is our #1 priority. So we don't want anyone to be doing anything that goes against what we want to achieve as part of our financial crime agenda.
And what about the whitelist for tokens?
Yes.
What was the idea behind it, how it functions?
How it functions,
what
yeah.
has been
That's
the
a great
reaction?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we get that question quite a lot. So when we developed the regime, the whitelist was there for us to also feel comfortable that investors that are investing into these firms or into the particular tokens, we're able to have a recognition regime where they can put trust in the fact that if a crypto token is being offered, it's already been presented to the regulator. We've reviewed that and we've approved it. Now at the moment, that list sits at about 8 that we recognise, and that's the biggest part of the market share that's being offered. So it's the tokens,
the main ones, right?
The main ones, exactly. Now, because this industry is moving so quickly, we're also re-looking at that and trying to determine, is that best fit for purpose going forward? So we've seen other regimes globally that do it slightly different. So now we're thinking, okay, it's something that we can consider. And as I said, with this particular industry, it's moving at such a pace, which is very different to, say, our commercial banks or private banks, etc., where you have the offering that has been quite stable over time, but the offering in regards to this space is almost changing. If it's not on a yearly basis, it's almost on a monthly basis, and then you're starting to see demand spike and the volatility there as well. So we have to come up with a regime through our interactions with the industry, and we do that through particular outreaches that we conduct, and we do it through bilateral meetings that we have for firms wanting to be regulated by the DFSA. But we also do it through making sure that we take a complicated or many pages of a regime and try to put it in the most simplest form. So what we've done is we've issued explainers to just make sure that the community as a whole, the ecosystem, is able to come to us and ask the questions they need to ask.
So what is for the general public to understand? One of our goals is really to try to demystify this sector as much as possible to the general public. So what does it mean for a token to be on the whitelist, and what does it mean for the companies licensed by the DFSA? So what can they do with a token that it's not that is on the whitelist and that it's not?
Yes. So if it's on the whitelist, it means it's gone through a process where a firm has come to us and said, look, this is the token I want to offer. Are you comfortable with that being offered and being on your list? And so what we've done is we've looked at it, we've made sure that it's fully transparent to the investors. We've made sure that we're comfortable, whether it's of how long it's been around, what is the liquidity, what is it that's being offered, how is it being offered, what is the governance structure. And so for us, that means that whoever is on the list, there has been a review process. But to your point, the ones that aren't on the list, is they would go through a similar process. The positive thing is once it is actually on the list, whichever firms want to leverage off whatever's on the list, they don't have to go through that process again. So it means that many of the firms that we've had come in, they've taken the initiative to get it recognised, but then other firms could leverage off the fact that it's been recognised. So as the ecosystem starts to grow, it means that list will get bigger, and then it means that the process itself is a lot quicker.
I know that Bitcoin is on the list. So who came to submit it?
Well, with Bitcoin, we knew that.
I thought you maybe
it's a big part. Right? Yeah. So as soon as we released our regime, we already had, I think, 3 on the list, and of course Bitcoin being one of them, and it's the biggest part of the market. So for us, look, there is a lot more coins out there that we are hoping to get to a stage where we start to recognise more and more, but also we need to rethink and contemplate whether from 2022 to today, is the approach consistent with what the industry wants? So we're listening to the industry and making those changes.
And there is always, we were just talking about it a lot, between being proactive and reactive regulator. But there is 1 millimeter. Sometimes there's 1 millimeter in between. It's hard to be either or, right?
Correct. And as a regulator for us, our number one priority is for investor protection. So we want to make sure that whatever is on that list has had a thorough review and that we're comfortable with the potential risk of what an investor might be taking on.
Tell me about the licensing journey. How many licenses have been issued to date? Now we are talking about ITL license or for this particular digital asset space?
So from a digital asset perspective, we have 10 that are fully authorized, and then we have many that are actually in the pipeline.
Yeah, exactly.
Now in the pipeline, it means that they're at an inquiry stage, an application stage, or an in principle stage. The difference with us is that once they're fully authorized, it means they have full access to the activity that they want to conduct. In principle means that we have accepted the application. There are certain conditions that need to be met, and then they will move forward to a fully authorized. The ITL is a good opportunity for someone, again, doing something quite innovative, especially in the digital asset space, but they may not be at the moment fully ready to offer the products. And so what we do, when I spoke about earlier about the actual restrictions, the restrictions themselves, they could be something as we restrict the amount of clients that they can onboard. Because it might be that the governance structure can't compensate for a huge amount of clients being onboarded at the same time. The others might be a transaction value that we restrict. But we are quite fluid in our approach. So what I mean by that is that we start to see that if they start to grow and they do have the right controls in place, then it means that we can start to remove or reduce those restrictions. So it means that on average, it would take someone to scale up at say a 12-month where they'll have those restrictions. But we've got cases where we've been able to shorten that restriction period. So it means that they can start offering more and more to the client, but we have to be comfortable that from a regulatory perspective, they have the right governance and controls in place.
So basically well-established concepts and approved concepts from all around the world, they are those who directly apply for the license if they want to set up here, but those that are really innovative and starting only now, they go through ITL program too, and after that probably when they graduate, let's call it that way, then they apply for a license or not, right?
Correct. And what we've seen a huge demand actually with existing firms that have been here, some in some cases 20 years. And then if you spoke to those same firms several years ago, they didn't see the demand in the digital asset space. But in the last few years, you've started to see the shift move across, where the more traditional firms are now saying, actually, I want to offer those digital assets to my clients because they're demanding.
As a new offering.
Correct. So what we've seen a huge demand on in regards to the licenses that have been fully authorized is around an existing firm that has got a variation of their license. So they might be what we call a category 1 bank, a big bank that now wants to offer digital assets. So they vary their existing license in order to offer those assets. Now that process is also a lot quicker for us because they're an existing firm. We understand the construct, we understand their approach to risk and compliance, and we understand the transparency of what they'll provide to their investors. So varying the license is for us quite an easy option.
And how long does it usually take if there is the
So that's the golden
option?
question. And, and I think I get asked that question almost on a daily basis. What we say is it takes as long as how well the application is, firstly, how well the firm itself can explain what they're offering and how they're offering it. But we've got cases where it can take as little as several weeks, but we've got other cases where on the firm side, they're also waiting for certain aspects in order to fulfill their application. So it's a very hard one because also we get a different amount of firms. So we get some firms that are very nimble, small, and can react very quickly to a query we might have. But there's other firms that have to go through an approval process and then have to give us a sort of appropriate business plan of where they see themselves over the next few years.
Fair enough. It's not only about the regulator. There are different starting points and different ways in which they themselves manage the process, right?
Correct.
So it's,
But I can say the feedback that we do get is that a lot of these firms are doing the same process all around the world. So whether that's Hong Kong, Singapore, New York, or London. So we always get compared on what has the process looked like from that perspective? And the feedback we get is that we are a very accessible regulator. So they can come in, we can have a discussion, we can give them feedback in relation to this is our regime, and this is what you want to do, and this is what needs to be sort of completed. And in some parts of the world, you won't have that direct access to the regulator. Whereas here you do. You can, have a request, have a face-to-face meeting, and those meetings can go, 2, 3, 4 meetings until we get to a point where we're actually to assist the firm through a process.
That's a good point, and it is what happens in Dubai, in the UAE, basically that openness.
Correct.
And cooperative mindset.
Correct, and I think it's a cultural thing within Dubai. We are seen as we're here to develop the DFSA, but also develop Dubai and its agenda, especially around the D33 strategy. But also develop the UAE. The UAE wants to be known globally as the place to do this digital asset business. And so we want to be able to foster the innovation and reduce the regulatory burden. Because for us, that's not going to help this industry grow.
Thank you. And one of the goals of our podcast is really to present to the world how Dubai and the UAE is becoming a hub in digital assets. So we are all in this together. Just tell me about these licenses for tokenization. Basically, those are companies who want to do tokenization of certain assets, products, etc. So more than 100 of them are now within a sandbox, developing the whole new concept, something very innovative with you. And at the end, they might get the license to operate, right? That's
correct. So just to be clear, the 100 is around the expression of interest that we've seen. But to your point, it's around the real world assets such as real estate, or it could be the fact they want to tokenize funds or equities or bonds, etc. And so what we're doing is having a look at all those expression of interest. So across all the 100 firms, potentially looking at their business plan and then seeing whether it's fit for purpose to take them through that ITL process. In some cases, they're well developed, so they don't actually probably need to go through an ITL process. They could just go through a straightforward authorization process. But that's something that we're doing at the moment. And then over time, what we'll be able to do is go back to each of those firms and say, okay, you've been nominated now to go through that ITL process. And then we will work with the firms to help them graduate to be fully authorized.
Yeah, clear. Okay, tell me now about assessing firms. Maybe instead of that, maybe you can give us your pointers or advice for firms going through the process with you or thinking about going through the process with DFSA. What are the main points that maybe they often miss or overlook? Or there's something interesting that you see being repeated among applications or among expressions of interest?
No, that's a great point. So definitely one thing I do want to get out, I think, to the industry is that, look, some of the applications we see are fantastic. So they're well thought through. They've understood that how their technology is actually going to run the business. But also for us, one thing that we do like to see in the application is what are your investor protections? How transparent are you being to your investor? What is your governance structure? Because something is, and again, we're talking from a regulatory point of view. We see business plans, of course, that have substantial growth. But as part of that growth, how are you ensuring that you've got the right controls in place? So it's about that understanding. But all in all, we've seen such a positive view in regards to the space, and everyone there's just so many great ideas, but it's about transposing those great ideas into an application through a business plan. And so we're here as a regulator to try and give the regulatory lens. How will you onboard your client? How do you ensure you're able to track the activities and what you're offering to the client? And I think that's important for us.
And to add to Justin's point is that a lot of these, as you all know, who follow the digital asset sector around the world, are very young people who are brilliant developing their solutions.
Fantastic.
But they might not know this business side and regulatory side. So it's important. Basically, a regulator is serving as somebody, giving them a hand and helping them create that legal structure that is needed for their brilliant idea that they're developing. So that's what it's actually about. Let's talk about risk and the safeguards, your approach to risk and safeguards also put in place. What would the position be here? Do you have a plan if something happens in this space and it involves a licensed entity, etc.?
So again, I get asked this question a lot because I think the risk and control environment is what the investor wants to understand. And so for us, we set ourselves at industry body standards globally to make sure that we're consistent with what the risks are that's happening around the world. But for us, we do a number of things, and I'll take you through a couple of components around making sure that we're able to track the activity. Of course, we have our regulatory reporting. That could be done on a monthly or quarterly basis. We use external tools to track the market and the activity. If we see a cyber attack, or if we see the misappropriation of funds where they're not putting funds in client asset accounts, etc. We have to track that almost on a regular basis. We also do thematic reviews. We do risk assessments. We offer explainers. We have a lot of bilateral meetings. But where we get the most value is we do a lot of outreaches. So even with every time we update our regime, we will have a formal outreach where people will come in and ask as many questions as they like. And we want to answer those questions. So I think what's important as a regulator is to be very close to the industry, because the minute you're not close to the industry, you won't understand the risks that potentially could come into the DFSA, which is our #1 priority.
Sure. And this is about also good intro to my next question. If you could give us an overview or your opinion on other digital asset hubs around the world, and there is DFSA, DIFC, and Dubai, and the UAE. Within that, we all know it's quite proactive and it's quite advanced, but it's also, I know that DFSA, actually DIFC offers something that a lot of crypto hubs don't have, like a digital economy court.
Yes.
Yeah, so you can tell us about those details. They were new for me as well, to be honest. Before.
And even having a digital asset law, which means that if you were to get into a smart contract, that it is enforceable under the courts within the DIC. That's something that's extremely unique to anywhere around the world. So I think what Dubai does well, and the DIC and the DFSA do very well, we look around what's happening globally. And even we do this from a regime perspective, and we benchmark ourselves against other regulators that are in this space. And we think to ourselves, what is it that we can do better in order to attract the firms into the center, but also making sure that we put across the safeguards, but taking a risk-based approach. Now, people do ask me, do you take a different approach in regards to risk and control that you do for a digital asset firm as opposed to your traditional firms? The fundamentals are the same. You need transparency. You need to ensure that you offer that to your investors. You've got the right protections, the right governance structure, because that's the only way the ecosystem is going to grow. The minute there's not trust in the ecosystem, then it's going to go the other way. It means that firms will go to other jurisdictions. Positive for us is we can see it in the numbers that firms globally are flooding into Dubai. So for us, that's saying that we're doing something completely right.
True, true. So this is one of the very unique points. Smart contracts are enforceable under digital assets law, and enforceable, there is a court, digital economy court, that can help, and that really is quite unique, right?
Yes.
So what's your opinion in general about the current state of crypto and digital economy around the world? Digital assets economy.
Oh, look, it's moving at a rapid pace, and
different regions are moving.
Moving fast, but also the demand is there. So I think in the past there was apprehension for more the traditional firms because they didn't see the demand, but now they are seeing the demand. So they have to keep up with the industry, rethink their business models, and we're seeing that, and we're seeing it at a rapid pace. And that's why I said to you earlier, even as a regulator, we have to be able to keep up with the rapid changes of the industry, because we don't want to be left behind. And I think what Dubai does very well is we want to be on the front foot. Now, the fact that we have a huge innovation hub within the DIFC, which started off very small, but has grown from a huge perspective, and now is potentially going to occupy a whole building within the DIFC. We have a Dubai AI campus that, again, huge demand in regards to being situated within that AI campus. And we're seeing the biggest names from around the world wanting to be based in Dubai. And not only is it about the new firms coming in, something that we don't speak enough about is the fact that existing firms are deepening their footprint within the DFSA and Dubai. And so that's something that we are, that we take great comfort on, because it means that globally they're rethinking, should I be based in a Hong Kong, Singapore, London or New York, or do I need to move and be based here in Dubai? So that speaks volumes, because what happens is once you start to see big firms move to Dubai, it means that other firms are looking around and saying, well, why aren't we in Dubai? And so for us, we've had a record year in 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025 is going to be probably our biggest year. And that's over a 20-year period.
In terms of applications,
Applications, but also the deepening of what's actually taking place here within the DFSA.
And for all of them around the world eyeing Dubai, how are DFSA and VARA coordinating each other's work, not to overlap and to offer clear
Definitely, I think that's important. I think what's a positive and what's unique is that anyone coming into Dubai, they can also choose who they want to be regulated by. So for us, as a regulator, we don't compete. But what we do, to your point, is we need to collaborate, which we do collaborate with VARA on an ongoing basis. We have very similar themes in regards to our approach. But of course, it's up to the individual firm to determine where they want to be regulated. And for us, that's a huge positive.
Okay. Looking ahead, maybe 5 years, I know that's like 5 centuries in this space. So what would your goals be? What would you like to have achieved then?
I think to continue the momentum of what we've seen in regards to the growth. But to your point, I think it's going to accelerate. And what I mean by that is we are fully aligned to what needs to be achieved as part of the Dubai D33 strategy. And we've also seen the facts and figures that are showing that they're heading in the right direction. And what's amazing about Dubai and the UAE is their strategy is longer term. So the D33 strategy is where they want to be several years from now, and so we're aligned to that. But I think to your point, it's positive to see the amount of growth coming in, and I do see the fact that we as the regulator have to be able to react very quickly to that in order to make sure we're able to grow at the same pace.
Thank you. And the last 2 questions. Basically, as I said, one of our goals is to demystify this sector to the general public, and who could do that better than a regulator, basically, to send a message to people not to be afraid of this sector, of all the innovation that is coming with it. So what would be maybe the main misconception that you see among people in general about this sector that you would, maybe advise them not to be afraid of?
I think it's more around just the ecosystem itself. So people probably it's a bit like everything. They think of crypto, but they think of it where it was several years ago. But it's developed heavily, and now you've got big institutional players that are heavily focused on this part of their balance sheet. So for us, we're seeing the momentum. But regulators like ourselves are putting regimes in place. So as I said, our regime came into play in 2022. So we are saying that we are comfortable to regulate the space, but of course we're comfortable to regulate it to the regime that we have in place. And that regime will update over time. So I think that's where the comfort factor comes in. Some regulators around the world aren't regulating this space. And so for us, we are at the forefront, making sure we're aligned to what Dubai wants to achieve. And I think for us, we'll continue to react to the demand that we're seeing within the industry.
So basically it's about clarity, but also flexibility.
Correct.
Clarity, security, but also flexibility to evolve together with the sector as it grows. Final piece of advice for investors, entrepreneurs around the world eyeing Dubai, maybe deciding to choose it over Hong Kong or Singapore or any. So why Dubai or the UAE in general would be a good choice?
Look, I think it's a great choice just to see the ecosystem here. And what I mean by that, we were, as a regulator, we were present at the Dubai FinTech Summit. Now, if you were present there, you would have seen over 9,000 people coming through the doors over 2 days. Huge amount of exhibitions, plenty of discussions taking place. But the fact of the investment, I think, is the biggest one. So again, from a DFSA perspective, we've seen huge, tremendous growth in regards to the innovation hub. We're seeing the fact that we've got this Dubai AI campus, but more than anything else, it's the government and the leadership here is getting behind this particular growth strategy in regards to digital assets. And what I mean by that, I don't think there's anywhere in the world that has a minister of AI. And so that's fantastic because it shows that there is a full momentum to actually grow this space and to grow it also in the right ways.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Justin, for your time. Thank you all. This was one more episode of SandDunes by Entrepreneur Middle East. Thank you.
Thank you.